Hello, everyone. I'm Johnny Congus. This is episode 39 of The Front Lounge. Very excited to have a special guest today. We'll introduce him in a moment. In the meantime, support the podcast stream on patreon.com/Congos. And most importantly, join the Discord. That's where all of this kind of continues after the fact and can meet all the people that are, I'd say, great fans of Congas, but our Discord's not actually a lot about Congas. It's more just kind of general discussion of, like, it's formed its own life and community. It's not just talking about fucking Congas all day long, because that would get boring very quickly, as we well know. So to introduce today, our guest is Janson Sommers, who's a musician here in Austin area. And we'll get into a full discussion because like I said, when he walked in, I don't know anything about you. Say hello. And this will be the introduction of you to the world and to us. So this is Janson Sommers, and
hello. Hi.
We tried not to do too much like pre-interviewing because I came across his account on TikTok, which is Dad Zodiac, right? Or Zodiac Dad?
Dad Zodiac.
Dad Zodiac. And I don't know how I came across it, but I thought it was fucking hysterical, the videos that you were making. So we reached out and said, we'd love to have you on the podcast. Also then started to go down the rabbit hole of listening to his music and his band's music, which we'll play later up on the podcast, and figured let's just have a clean conversation without knowing too much about you. So who are you?
Clean, no cussing.
Where are you from?
I'm from Florida originally. So I'm a Florida man that you've heard about in the news. Been in Texas and Austin for about 10 years. And, just kind of baby stepping my way through the music world.
Yeah.
And, I have a band called Futon Blonde and started to do solo stuff. I'm just a dude hanging out, trying to be creative.
Okay, so the videos that I've seen and which we've played on the stream before, in fact, I'll just play some now because it will give some context. I want to ask how these came about, but let me play a couple first.
Who doesn't need external validation? Hey, who else here doesn't need external validation? I know I can't be the only one. Anybody? Who else? I think I see someone in the back. Come on, guys.
Okay, I'll play one or two more. I like this one for some reason.
I just cut this toxic thing out of my life. Letters were getting stuck. It was all fucking with my WPMs, my words per minute. Like, don't come to talk to me unless it's about money or increasing my WPM. I've always said that.
And then one last
class. Remind honest. Be
Sorry.
honest, guys. Would you say I'm an iconoclast? Or am I more of like an enfant terrible? I definitely have a devil may care attitude, but
Okay, so let me ask this question because you're a musician primarily. Is that what you would say that you are, and that's like your focus?
Sure.
So you're making these videos that most of the time have nothing to do with music. Is it something that you enjoy doing? Did it come out of a position? I'm kind of leading the witness here, but like, did it come out of a feeling of like frustration of trying to figure out social media and how it relates to music? Because I know certainly the dumb videos I do came out of that. It's like, I don't really want to be a comedian or anything, and I'm certainly not, but I was like, I can't just keep posting links to music because the algorithm does not like that, so I got to do dumb shit.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's like, well, I say dumb shit all the time, and apparently people sometimes are interested in that. I know I'm interested in certain other people's dumb shit, so might as well put it out there. But it is funny how, I'll have friends that are like, well, you're putting yourself out there, huh? I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? I couldn't do it. No, I think it's great. I couldn't do it. Like, okay. I think they mean well. But I got a lot of dumb, jokey ideas that come into my head. And
yeah, to me, I mean, Dad even said to us when I was doing all my stupid reels, he's like, is this ultimately harming you? And I was like, well, look, it may or may not be. I don't know. But I was like, you don't understand
cosmically
the internet, Dad. It's like nothing matters until it matters. Like either they blow up and you become people follow you to hear your kind of dumb thoughts, or nothing happens and you go back to sadly posting your music videos and hoping people will listen to it.
Does this harm you? Like,
He didn't mean harm me in an existential way. He just meant like, let's put it this way. 10 years ago, if you went to a band that was trying to take themselves seriously and said, hey, let's just get a vertical camera and film you saying silly remarks about the world, about the state of affairs, every band would be like, fuck off, I'm not doing that.
It just depends on whether you deliver or not. Because, like, who's that Scottish guy who's huge? That's like a massive...
Lewis Capaldi.
Yeah, he's fucking funny. He's really funny on... and so it doesn't harm me. If anything, it makes me more open to his music because I didn't fucking like any of it. And now that I've seen his online personality, like, I like him, you know?
I would say the same, for like Jack Harlow. I don't know if you know, the American rapper. A lot of people don't like his music, but they're like, he seems like a cool, funny guy. I support him.
Yeah.
I think that's like why a lot of people voted for Bush too.
For sure.
Seems like a nice guy. Could have a beer with him. I don't mind that he just bombed 1 million people.
Mm-hmm.
When you see, we always talk about this, when you see footage of him, it's so cute and quaint. Like his version of being the evil president versus what's come since. Like, it's just, he's so charming. And at the time, you're like, this fucking guy is trying to kill millions of people all over the world.
Mm-hmm. It's also what happens nowadays is things seem to happen so quickly where someone blows up on Instagram or TikTok. Like I can imagine, not because of this podcast, but a week from now, you could start getting 50, 100,000, 500,000 views per TikTok because that's how the nature of things. Like, who's the guy that does the kombucha stuff? The South African. Yeah, he does. I forgot his name, but I came across him and I saw... it was within 1 week, his videos went from doing this silly kombucha character, getting 100 views to literally 300,000 views sometimes, or a million views on something, and then all of a sudden that changes your life. So then you can say,
well, the problem though,
success based almost.
He's a comedian. This guy, he does these like kind of tongue in cheek, like Namaste Bay. It's like very pseudo spiritual, but in a tongue in cheek way. He's a comedian, so the translation of if one of those videos blows up for him is immediate and makes sense. If one of my dumb videos blows up on Instagram, then what?
Right.
Like, here, you want to listen to my music? The vast majority of people say no. Like, that's not what they're... I'm here for the dumb videos, you know?
Do you have in mind the cross promotion of that, or is it just something fun that you do?
I had a question about that one, about the iconoclast or infantira, whatever. Do you... I'm assuming that's inspired by direct, like, real life experience with a person.
You know,
you don't have to drop names, but my question is like, do you go away from like a social setting and then go make a video like that, or do you delay it so that you don't want the person who might have been behind that to put it together?
Yeah, that's a very good point and question. I think I do delay it and sadly, it's probably more likely that I'm like scrolling and then and have thoughts based off of that. Maybe a social interaction every now and then.
I guess that, there's a lot of sources of inspiration, but I find real life stuff it sticks with me more, you know, and if I want to do an impression of someone or whatever, like I like doing an impression of someone I know in real life, you know?
Yeah, that's the base, some basis in reality adds a certain weight to something rather than a completely imagined scenario.
That's hilarious, iconoclast, because my online hobby is to tweet at, you know who Nassim Taleb is?
Sounds familiar.
He's like this polymath genius, kind of really intelligent guy. For me, he's like the smartest idiot on earth. Because he's so intelligent, you know, he's just leagues of intelligence above me, but he is so oblivious to his projections. So my favorite hobby is like tweeting back at him until I get blocked, because he blocks everyone.
Have you been blocked yet?
No, dude, because I think it's partially because of the Greek name. Like, he's very partial to Greeks and like Lebanese people. And then I keep it pretty obscure. And I mostly like reflect back, but he posted some other fucking thing. He said, like, when you're an iconoclast, the weak will call you arrogant, the powerful will call you this, and the strong will call you righteous. And I was like, you're describing yourself as a fucking iconoclast, and then you're imagining what people think of you, and then you're basically saying, I'm an iconoclast, and that's why strong people think I'm great. Is that like what you're fucking saying with your? And he tries to make them like into an aphorism. He's got a whole book of aphorisms, and he'll quote himself. He'll respond to someone, and he'll post his aphorism from his book, and then not put his name there. So it's like he's quoting Marcus Aurelius, but he's really just fucking quoting himself. I love the guy.
Yeah, but that's a pretty iconoclast thing to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's like,
It's self-fulfilling at a certain point.
it is. He is truly endearing. So I like he's my main source of like stuff on Twitter that I enjoy interacting with. I look forward to his tweets every single day. But I've never read Marcus Aurelius and thought like, Jesus, this guy is so
he didn't have a
oblivious.
Twitter account.
Except for when he talks about like semen and like the roles that it had. Like he had some funny ideas about that. But
Also, wasn't Marcus Aurelius's kid the fuck up that Gladiator? You know the Gladiator, the movie with Russell Crowe.
I've heard different stuff about that. Augustus?
Yeah, I don't know if again, who knows how accurately it was portrayed, but like his son Marcus Aurelius, like legend of kind of stoicism sort of thought.
Yeah.
His son was the complete fuck up that Joaquin Phoenix plays. You know, just this piece of shit, like evil. emperor.
Right.
So
I mean, it's
like,
pretty hard to judge someone who had to run an empire. Like he probably let some stuff fall through the cracks.
Yeah,
like
his son.
All right, so now back to why did you move to Austin from Florida?
So I lived in Seattle briefly, and that was just to like, both Seattle and Austin were like, where's a cool place that's not Florida? Because Florida's already so cool. Where are the other? No, I have mixed feelings about Florida. And I was in Seattle with my then girlfriend, and then she got sick of the weather. And I was like, it's about to get beautiful, in the springtime. But we came here and broke up. Still friends. Been here both still doing our thing here. And but yeah, there's what are cool places, maybe somewhat in the South, kind of closer to home in Florida. And it was like, a few of the hip cities. Kind of picked one.
10 years ago, Austin was still tiny.
Yeah, I suppose so. But of course, when we moved here, everyone was like, oh, it's done. The 80s maybe, 90s maybe, but yeah.
Yeah,
It is funny how there's never a time where people aren't complaining that their city is being destroyed by invaders.
Right.
that's my first experience here. The first guy I met was this guy called Pickle at the dog park. And he said, "Where'd you come from?" And I said, "California." He goes, "I got to get the fuck out of here."
My neighbor here, because I'm out in Dripping Springs, a little more like Texas, because Austin, like you could be in Seattle or LA or like central Austin. And he asked me where we moved from, and I said Phoenix, because I stopped over in Phoenix on the way for like a year. And he says, "Okay, that's fine, as long as it's not California." Wow. And I was like, "Well, actually, sir, before that it was California." He's like, "Just as long as you didn't bring your politics with you." Like that typical line, I actually heard that in person.
Right.
And then I was like, "Sir, if you knew my politics and what a nihilist I am, you wouldn't care." Like, I'm not fucking anything
And then I
up.
pulled out my Amnesty International sign-up sheet and free condoms.
It really is a thing. When we were at Fox 12 and Tracy, just one of the women there, like had a friend in from Santa Monica, and she was introducing her to the table. She like shouts at the top of her lungs, going, "And so from Santa Monica, California, we're like, everyone literally went."
I feel the opposite. I feel like I'm a big defender of California now. When I was there, I wasn't. Mm-hmm. But,
Yeah,
That's how it often works. Once you leave, then you Steely Dan, when they were in New York, or they were in, I forget how it goes. They're writing songs about California when they're in New York, and then vice versa.
right. Yeah.
yeah.
Sentimentality. So let's talk about Futon Blonde, which is your band. I've seen you playing lots of instruments. What is your primary role in Futon Blonde?
Play guitar and sing, and do some keys too. But it was originally like songs I had written, and then formed a band around that, and now it's more of like a real democratic kind of multiple songwriter band.
Did you give up that your title is
just
dictator
totally-
easily, or was there a big fight?
There's like, maybe an unspoken kind of, I don't know, maybe I am writing like 60% of the songs. I don't know. It's kind of whoever's got songs. And if we kind of figured out what fits the Futon kind of sound, I guess. Right. I say that, but then we're about to come out with like our metal EP and our electronic EP. So we're still all over the place.
What's the name from?
No, it's not really a deep meaning. I was just looking. My mom will try to help coming up with names. She's like 32 hinges. I was like, whoa, you're getting Wu-Tang on me. And then I don't know if she just sees things. And then she said Couch Blonde. And then someone said Futon. And I love a little rhyme,
That's
pseudo
a funny
rhyme.
story about a band's origin name.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good name.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. There have been, members of the band who aren't huge fans of the name, so it's kind of like we are going to change it eventually, right? Like, oh no, I'm
to what?
planning on I don't know.
Yeah, once you choose a name, I feel like you have to stick to it. We went through a time we almost changed our name, and we like very seriously, and we reached out to some people we trusted and said, "What do you guys think of this name?" And like the universal feedback was, "Are you guys fucking insane?"
Mm-hmm. Have you ever publicly revealed what that name was? Okay.
No, we can't.
I don't know if we can. Yeah. We don't want anyone else to take it.
Sure.
No, but it's like once you commit to something, especially I feel like if you get even the remotest amount of success, like bringing a few people to a bar or having, a song out on the radio or something, or like getting a few streams on Spotify, I feel like you got to kind of stick to it.
What's one of those things? Yeah, there's a threshold where people don't associate the words anymore. Like when you're completely unheard of, and like perhaps some of the band members are saying that weren't happy with the name, they're picturing a futon and a blonde, and they've got all their associations of what that might mean, and it's negative because of this. But think of all the band names.
The Beatles.
That's what I always think of, the Beatles.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they
or like Art Garfunkel's parents thought that was a good.
Fucking Engelbert Humperdinck chose that name.
He knew what he was doing. Though.
Yeah.
He knew what he's doing.
Yeah. Or Sting.
Sting, that
that
still
one
deserves.
corny.
Yeah. Because that wasn't like in the 40s or 50s, 60s when, like the Monkees and the Beatles and that was like the Beach Boys. There was a certain innocence back then. Sting was in the 70s, 80s, where it's like you chose in the era of.
Well, doesn't Dana Carvey, that comedian,
Sting?
have a bit about? He's like, there was a day when he came in and said, "All right, everyone, I'd like you to start calling me Sting from now on." Like having to go through that moment.
Because doesn't he have a very English like schoolboy name? Sting.
Probably.
Sting?
Yeah, I think his name's very.
I don't know.
English
I've never looked up what his real name is.
Let's find out.
What is Sting's name?
Gordon.
Yeah,
Gordon Solomon.
Gordy.
That's how the bit works so well with the Dana Carvey bit because his name's Gordon.
Right.
I'm surprised he hasn't tried to scrub that from the internet. Let's take a second and play a song from your band here, Futon Blonde, called Lacerate. Is there anything you want to say about this, or just let the music speak for itself?
Yeah, maybe I'll remember stuff about the song if I hear it.
And you made this video, right?
I did make this video.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. Has it got a kind of a Monty Python-esque feel? Is that something that inspired this, or that
I'm sure
subconsciously?
It's probably subconsciously. Yeah, that was Terry Gilliam, right? That would do the animations. That always confused me as a kid. I'm like, wait, they're British, but he's American. How can that be possible? But I think I was just looking for stuff to manipulate, and I was looking really just for free use art. And I was like, oh, you can have these high res stuff all from I think it's from the Metropolitan Museum in New York. And so just going through some of my favorite eye popping works and trying to manipulate them.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
sense. I accept your threat of violence, it's alright. There's lots of good people that wanna hurt me bad, wanna hurt me bad. Try to find my way through the galaxies. Try to celebrate all the violent ways to elucidate. Then come to find there's a new way you can play. There's a way of every kind way to masterate. When they take a swing, dug and smile, yeah. I feel okay. I like my cage, and when it's warm, all the rage compressed for days goes out in a little display, and the crowd gathers round. But there's a way of every kind way to lacerate. When they take a swing, tug and smile, yeah. There's a way. Try and find my way every day, yeah. Trying.
So I feel like the problem when you make a video like that that's really cool is then the band's like, what about the next one? You're like, I'm not doing that amount of work again.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like, what about outsourcing?
Right.
And then you find out I had a friend in LA who was an animator, and I talked to her about doing maybe a video, and it was just a 2D animation video. And when she quoted me back, like even with the friendly discount, it was going to be something like $15,000.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, because she was just basing it on how many hours she was going to do it, and it was like, it's probably going to take me maybe 6 hours a day for the next 2 months. It's like a full-time job to do a video, and
Well,
it was just insane.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting now. Some of these AI tools are certain types of animation will become way cheaper. You'll be able to you probably at the point now where you could say, cut out these types of figures or cut out all flowers from this picture, and it's going to be able to do that kind of stuff for you easily. But
Yeah. I mean,
obviously, once that becomes commonplace, then it's not going to be as cool. Like you have to find a new thing that only humans can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever look back and just think about wasted hours of stuff that's like technology is rendered obsolete now?
Yeah.
For example, with the Photoshop stuff, like I posted a time lapse of me cutting out backgrounds and stuff, and someone who plays in a band who does graphic design as like their full-time job was like, oh, like new Photoshop, that's like one click that took you 8 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That seemed to happen almost like as a little cosmic joke, because I did a lot of the video stuff for us, and like Take It From Me, we did a big head mode video. It took me forever to track these. You cut out the heads, track them onto the bodies, and make it look like NBA Jam big head mode. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Like the day we release the video, Snapchat comes out with a big head mode filter, and it's like doing it automatic. I'm like, these motherfuckers, man.
But then you have to look inward. It's like, why am I mad? The tools are there. Do I care about the ends or the means, or I don't know.
Right. And also, what credit can you really take? Because the tools have made it so easy compared to, it's not like you're carving something out of marble. I always think about like the AI art, because you put in the prompts and you put in like 3 words and then you have some sense of ownership over this thing that you helped create. And it's like, I think that need to own your creation applies no matter how little the effort is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that you're going to see. Are you aware of something called dogma filmmaking?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Lars von Trier, right?
Yeah,
He's associated with that.
Yeah, it's basically a school of thought where I believe there's 10 like commandments of how you can make films. It's that it can be no added sound, as in like no, you can't do ADR, you can't add music. There can be music within a scene, like if you're in a bar, but you can't add a score. Certain types of edits only allowed, no brought in light, like if you're in a dark room, it's dark. So it's just a self-imposed set of restrictions to force a certain type of film. I imagine that's going to happen more where people get into like genres of like music that's got no loops in it, or music that is only acoustic instruments, and it's like, yeah, the tools are always coming and going, and people find ways to find new, novel things that are respected. Or
I feel like that's like a self-imposed restriction intended to force a new result or something like that. But I feel like Barry Lyndon, have you seen that Kubrick movie?
Familiar.
He kind of achieved that without the kind of strict following these 10 commandments type of thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't. It maybe is necessary for someone, and maybe it makes interesting movies and all that kind of stuff. But he kind of he shot that all with candlelight. There's like minimal, extra light. There's minimal score, or even like No Country for Old Men. There's like one section where there's score when they're about to blow up the car. When what's his name is about to blow up the car. Otherwise, there's no music.
It almost feels like it's more for the person making it than it is for the audience, to try to create something new out of that. Because I don't know if the audience cares.
No,
other than a few select few. Like there's a movie that's an actual one-shot movie. I think it's called Victoria, that Trev would always talk about. It's 2 hours of literally a single shot. I don't think they faked anything, and it's unbelievably incredible, like what the choreography that they did. But the audience at the end of the day probably doesn't care that much. They maybe saw that for the novelty, but the movie has to be good too. If it wasn't good, I don't think anyone cared at all.
yeah,
That they use this cool tool,
yeah. Let's just cut to Danny real quick. Where is he? He's being mauled by a dog. Check out this news story. Seattle schools are suing tech giants over social media harm. So I'm not going to read the article because I don't read articles. I only read headlines. But it's interesting to start seeing that kind of stuff is going to come up more. Like they're suing them for basically the psychological harm they believe social media is doing to kids. So it's a posturing sue. I don't think necessarily anything comes from it.
the fuck is wrong with them? Seattle's always prided themselves on being the center of computing. And
Right,
they
but I'm
produce
saying,
so you eat your own fucking product here.
Yeah, but I mean, look, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what the motivation, like someone there believes that it's harmful and
They're right.
Yeah. And then other people, like it's more of a statement to try and push certain policies. It's like, it's not just purely a lawsuit.
They're trying to get attention,
It's
I
an
guess,
attention thing. But it's interesting to think, like, even the fact that it's gotten to that level, like, I can imagine if you were in the school system and you had been there for 20 years, say, as a teacher, to see like how it's changed. I think about this now with my daughter, like how you don't want to limit kids totally because then it becomes this taboo thing. But like, how am I going to navigate that, especially 10 years from now when she's actually at that age? Like, it's complete. I know how harmful it is to me, like that scroll and the shit it does to your serotonin. Like, I don't know. It's inevitably that we are going to have to deal with this at a big level.
Or maybe the people who grow up with it won't be the same stimulant that it is
Yeah,
for
that could be true.
people, because it's people who we grew up without it, and then it was introduced. So now it becomes this kind of weird stimulant. But if it's always there, maybe it's just part of life. It's like background noise.
I've felt that way with my cousins who are all like 10 years younger than me. And I'm like, oh, they're all going to be on their phones. And I'm the one that's on my phone more than they are. They put it, I don't know, maybe I just have cool cousins, but.
No, I've noticed the same thing. My ex-girlfriend's little cousins and brothers and younger brothers and sisters, all in like teenage years. And they were all on TikTok and Snapchat and all that kind of stuff. But it's like they did it, and then they moved on. Mm-hmm. You know, and then
I think it's an anomaly though, because they were at the beach in summer. They were, you know, direct access to something pretty like more stimulating, which is nature.
Right.
Most people are living in the city where it's not actually more stimulating as a kid, because you know, as an adult going into a city, it can be really stimulating. As a kid, it's probably pretty difficult to be stimulated by like having to stay indoors in a city or in a suburb where there's not much access to anything interesting or nature or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you like her little brother was like 11 and obsessed with Gucci. So I guess there was evidence of.
Yeah, I think that these Seattle, they might be right. All right. Here's another news story. I won't even pull it up. This is kind of old. Well, not old, but like old, internet old. A few weeks ago, Rolling Stone put out their list of the top 200 singers. I don't know if you guys saw it. Yep. They left Celine Dion off, which I'm like very split about, because I've like any person with ears, you can't like Celine Dion, but you also can't not put her on a list of top singers. Like, objectively speaking, she's a fucking good singer.
They left her off of a list of 200 people?
Yeah.
Jeez.
So, I mean, I'll put
someone has a beef with her.
No, I mean, it's pure clickbait bullshit, but I just wanted to read
They
down
probably
the
promoted the fact that they're like, by the way, Celine Dion's not on the list. Go run with that.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, like, no one does anything anymore.
Genuinely.
Yeah. It's always like, how can we get a click out of this? But the list is, you know, it's like all the obvious people you think. Number one, Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, Sam Cooke, Billie Holiday, Mariah Carey, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Beyonce at number 8, I disagree with, Otis Redding, Al Green. It's like all the typical people, but I know they were sitting there with like a social media expert saying like, what if we put Beyonce above John Lennon? That's going to piss off a certain group of people, and you know.
But she's above Little Richard too?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Beyonce at 8's not acceptable, in my opinion.
9, maybe.
It is clickbait, basically. We think about this. When you do your funny videos, you think about like how to clickbait people into watching it title-wise and all that stuff.
I should more for sure. And the one that's got the most views and likes, unsurprisingly, you do mention white privilege in it. So the algorithm or something picked up on that, I think.
Yeah, it's anything that basically triggers something in someone. Like, even if it's small, when you guys did the Thanksgiving food sucks.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's like, it's what's amazing is that
it has to be polarizing,
Yeah. It's what's amazing is that people that don't follow the podcast, who are scrolling, come across it, feel the urge still to comment and get into an argument about it. Like the one you also posted one recently, the ayahuasca assholes one, not the one that of me, one of you guys are saying is a shortcut. And there was the guy commented and was like, "Shortcut? What about pharmaceuticals? What about all you guys?" He doesn't follow the podcast. He wrote a lengthy thing, like angry at us calling ayahuasca a shortcut or something.
I forgot about that, because that was so awesome. It's like, he needs to do more ayahuasca. Yeah. He's trying to sell me on the virtues of it, like helping you confront your inner demons. He's yelling at a fucking stranger on the internet. I was like, I agree with you. That's my point. Yeah.
What was the gist of the white privilege video? Or can you find it? Or?
I should be able to find it.
Oh, sure. It's, on my TikTok. Please refer to my TikTok.
You know what it looks like off the top?
Yeah, I thought I had it pinned. Maybe it doesn't work the same on the browser.
Is it the one with you with your hair and your mustache?
Yeah. Actually, I think it would be towards the top.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely
there it is.
There it is. Yeah.
Poised to blow up because of the consistency. You know, like you're following the formula of, if people like the brand, they're gonna like it.
Yeah, I dare not shave my mustache or change my
Yeah,
hair.
you're locked in now.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to see my impression of a privileged white guy talking about historical atrocity? It goes like this. Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting. Oh, you want to see?
I mean, I don't think that's just getting a lot of views because of the algorithm. I think it's funny.
Oh, thanks. As a comment on myself. You draw from yourself first, and then you.
Is that something you're aware of when you find yourself kind of pontificating on some subject that you catch yourself? You're like, oh, I'm that guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there's all the hot topic issues. I think the problem with them is that people are navigating in real time, in a conversation. You're trying to express yourself, but you're also trying to make sure that you're not misinterpreted and all that kind of stuff. So it's this high level game that you're playing all the time. And that's kind of the feeling I got about that kind of thing. Like every conversation, any time in a conversation, people have too many caveats about what they're about to say. Mm-hmm. It's just an indication of you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. You're trying to have an opinion but not have it. It's all that kind of stuff.
I think it's also because people have become so aware of how conversations can be now taken, particularly public conversations, out of context, that you have to okay, I know this will be the part that's sound clipped. If you had some opinion about any hot topic, you got to put all your caveats in so that when they go review the footage, you'd be like, no, but look, I didn't actually say the little thing you snipped out.
Right.
But yeah.
That's there's not to get back to Talib again, but he's always got these gems of wisdom combined with his special personality. Because he said something along those lines. He quoted himself from his book called Better Pro Christus, and he said, "If you care about your reputation, you don't deserve to have one." And I basically agree with that. I think it's kind of overstated, and he's trying to be weighty, but he's got a point. He's got a point that if your heart is in maintaining your image, then
that's I would have to read the full quote because
That's it.
who
doesn't
care about the reputation? Because the reputation.
That's why he's special.
Yeah, that's
because
crazy.
he so cares about his reputation, but he's also saying something which I can find some value in.
Yeah, but not only it's a denial of the fact that your reputation has value in whatever it can achieve in the world. So caring about it has value. Obviously, obsessing over it for now that's a sliding scale of whatever.
So I think there's a different kind of care. You're talking about practically caring about your reputation.
Yeah,
and that's because you have an aim. If you have an aim which comes from some sort of
that's on a
internal
scale.
moral compass,
that's on a scale that
right,
aim
yeah.
or that care is going to be there because and then also you would justify it. You could justify not wearing a certain piece of clothing because it might ruin your reputation, and you're going to justify it as this is towards some.
like
higher
Prince
aim.
Harry when he wore the Nazi outfit.
Yeah,
He didn't. That guy, according to Talib, deserves a reputation because he clearly doesn't care about it.
yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that's probably the most mild thing that family's ever done.
Dude, have you watched any of the promo clips for their show on Netflix?
They all fucking deserve each other, is my opinion. All of them. They're so full of shit. Especially Harry. That guy's... What a fucking piece of shit he seems like. I mean, he's probably right to have to run away from the royal family, but they really...
It's like that Jimmy Carr joke. William thinks Harry's a cunt. Harry thinks William's a cunt. When will they both realize? You see, people are going to clip me on that one now.
Yeah.
Say that I said both of those things, and I did. Check out this. There's this account called Radvertising. It's just old ads that people have found. I think this is a real ad.
But hold on, in a previous life he could have been George Washington. Nice cat. Perhaps Annie Oakley? And look at him, why it's Napoleon. Reincarnation. What human being was your pet in a previous lifetime? Master reincarnationist E. David Scott will tell you when you call this number. Just answer simple questions with your touch-tone phone. $1.95 per minute for entertainment only. Under 18 get permission. Call now. Learn who your pet was as a human in a previous lifetime.
Who do you think your cat was in a previous lifetime?
Yeah, could it just be like Greg? Like, does that have to be a famous person?
Yeah, it's amazing how many people have been Cleopatra in their previous lives.
Right.
You know, it's like they're never just some loser, you know, that didn't amount to anything. They're always Cleopatra or something like that.
The thing about these accounts that are just finding old gems from the past is like you can't be funnier than like the real shit out there. You know, like it's very hard to out like bad joke. Out these previous ads. This is awesome account, radvertising_CO, where ads go to die.
Right.
It's a cool account. Let's see what else. Oh, this is one more thing. I know I've played this dude 1,000 times on the internet. I mean, on this podcast, but he is my favorite person. Watch this.
They don't wear fragrance, but they just smell good.
Richtig, ihr tragt nichts, oder?
They just smell good, fresh out of the shower. Female musk, it's fantastic.
Like, I hope they don't speak English.
Dude, you got to go down this Jeremy fragrance. Again, it's like it's the same thing. Like everyone's clickbaiting, and he knows like he's got this character now. But I think he actually might be like an American.
I'd say he's
Psycho.
worse than Prince Harry.
Yeah, probably.
It's a good shot right there up the nose. That's what's doing all the work, smelling all those musks.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing says like this will get me into heaven like chest hair and a cross. You know, you always got to put.
What is it? The chest hair has a greater chance of getting to heaven than the camel through the needle of the eye. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, Matthew, Mark,
Yeah.
Luke, and Gringo or something. Ringo.
Yeah, so everyone go check out Jeremy Fragrance. Oh, this is I like George Harrison a lot. You know, I'm like songs wise, I think I might be more of a Paul McCartney guy, but the more I watch footage of them and see it, I think I like George Harrison as a person the most. And now he's my hero, and you guys will understand why.
You worked with Madonna on Shanghai Surprise.
Tried to.
That sort of answers my question. What was that like, working with her or trying to?
It was, do you want the truth? It was a pain in the ass.
Why?
Because we were doing a comedy movie. She hasn't got a sense of humor. And her husband Sean, who's a really nice, intelligent fella, and I had a laugh with him at times, but you know, he sort of gets all uptight and, you know, cause all the trouble. And it was like the producers, you know, where he says, I picked the wrong cast, the wrong actors, the wrong director. Where did I go right?
Jeez. Dude, yeah, it's funny to see, like, talking shit has been a thing for a while, I guess. You know, like, you always think of, like, I would never think of George Harrison basically just saying Madonna doesn't have a sense of humor.
I mean, that's... I thought he was going to say something much worse, but now thinking about it, that's almost the worst thing you can say about someone. What? I mean, there are worse things, but but I thought he was going to say she was difficult or this or that, but just so casually saying she doesn't have a sense of humor, and that's the most like that's painful. Imagine hearing that you don't have a sense of humor.
Right. There's a section in this book, The Idiot, that I'm listening to now. It's by Dostoevsky, and You're
listening to it? You're not reading it?
No, I'm listening to it. I can't fucking read. I
read it in Russian.
Right. Yeah. He the one guy, like these two friends / rivals, or the one guy's kind of hoping that he gets called a scoundrel. That was like the word of the day, you know. And the main character says, "No, I was wrong to judge you about that. Genuinely, like from the heart." He says, I was completely wrong. You're just incredibly ordinary. And for me to have thought of you as a, you know, this evil person was just so clueless. But that's what you're really offended by. Mm-hmm. That you don't even register as worthy of disdain or, you know.
I always thought Bill Murray's calling Chevy Chase a medium talent was a pretty good diss.
Didn't they get into a fist fight?
That's what I heard.
Yeah. I mean, I like both of them.
But
Bill
both
Murray.
seem like assholes also, but
Right.
but
Yeah.
I'm more of the Bill guy if I had
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
choose one.
I've heard stories about Chevy Chase. He seems like a genuine asshole. The only stories I've heard about Bill Murray seeming like an asshole, it seems like people didn't get him. You know, they didn't get where he was.
Recently, some more shit's come out, but it was hard to tell how real or on how
Right.
like PR based it was. You know, like it is kind of with everything. But there was some stuff that came out recently about. I don't think it was like Me Too, like sexual abuse stuff, but it was like just being incredibly difficult. And like,
Did it come from a ghost that he was trying to bust?
Oh, sorry. Can we just go back because the reason I love George Harrison because he talks shit about Madonna. And have you guys seen her recently?
A little bit.
I'm not even going to play the audio because it will get pulled from the stream. But this is just weird to watch. If anyone's just listening to the podcast, just go check out Madonna on TikTok at Madonna. I'll help her. So, okay. It's just weird to, I don't know.
It's just, you can't be famous for multiple decades.
Yeah,
it'll fuck with your head. You know,
Gone
it's
to
like,
her head. Like, how old is she now? I know this is ridiculous for us to be talking about. Like, I'm wearing a fucking camouflage art thing trying to get followers on Twitch and all that.
So why aren't you wearing the pants?
Oh no, but God, this is enough today.
That's Madonna?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I think it's I don't view it as much of an indictment. I literally think if anyone were that famous for that long, you know, it takes especially by the way you enter into fame. It's like,
Yeah, I know what you're saying, that like you try being an icon for whatever, 40,
and
50
ending
years
up normal.
now.
Yeah.
And I get that it does go to your head. I mean, like even our relatively small bit of success we had could have, I think, had we not been brothers able to just call each other on shit, any one person could have started to like believe all of it.
Well, after extended touring, we'd come back and I would feel like, oh, I have to do dishes. You know, I'm like, what the fuck? I thought I was above this. You know, because it's just a consequence of not having to do it.
Oh yeah, my equivalent thought of that was you'd come back and like go hang out with our normie friends, and you want to be like, let's go out every night, and they're like, no, I gotta go to work a job. And you're like, but it's Tuesday, it's 11 p.m. We go out to the bars after the show at 11 p.m. Like you just get so into that lifestyle. So yeah. I'm still not going to cut her any slack because I just think there's people that have not gone that crazy.
Do you have fears of becoming too famous for too long?
I would love to put it to test.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So that validation video, that kind of, I was just talking about that with someone, because you do meet a lot of people who get that idea that they don't need validation or something like that, or it becomes like some maybe aim of theirs. But then there's a bar I go to right by us called Sam's, and there's a little dog there that the owner has, and she's always kind of curled up on a chair, and I watch it now in slow motion. I watch someone go up and go, oh, and she always goes, ah, like that. And they think there's something wrong with them. You know, she does it to almost everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And
is there a lesson here?
Yes, they need fucking validation from a dog, but they don't think they need it from life. Like if a dog doesn't like you, it fucks with your ego.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're gonna tell me that you don't fucking need validation. You're out of your mind.
Yeah, it's the same thing when people come up to my daughter who's 1.5 now.
Yeah, and she doesn't care about it.
She doesn't care, or she gets a little bit scared, like all kids do at that age, and people like really take it personally, like, oh no, I didn't. Oh, you'll like me soon. It's like,
she still does it.
She's not thinking about it. She's like,
She still does it to me. I feel if I don't get a wave goodbye when I'm leaving, I'm like, what'd I do?
she does it to me. If I don't get a nice, really good hug before putting it to bed, I'm like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
It's like artists that are just doing it for the art.
Right.
I've not met one ever. Only. I'm not saying that you know it's an aspiration, I guess, to be pure about art, but like, come on, we need people to tell us it's good.
Well, I mean, what's wrong with validation?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Do you need me to agree with you?
Yeah. No, I mean, no, it's a genuine question. I don't need anyone to agree with me, but like, what is actually wrong with it?
That's a good point. Yeah. Really. Yeah.
Now they're patronizing me. God damn.
Great point.
I'm looking forward to all the TikToks that come up from you after this conversation about
Just
a
delay
bunch.
it 3 weeks so we don't think it's about us.
Right.
Yeah,
There'll be one about, like, no, I don't care about my reputation. You can ask anybody. You can ask anybody. They all know.
That's a good one.
Okay, so we might get a little deep on this one. We don't have to go long. Some scientists, this is an article that came out last year, and it comes out every year, say that time might not exist. And the crux of this article...
When did they say this?
So, Janson, you said you listen to a lot of physics podcasts, so you are a resident quantum physicist today.
Yes, yes.
And you're going to correct us when we go wrong. The crux of this article is that there's general relativity, special relativity of quantum physics, where they can't, as of yet, reconcile the two in terms of how gravity works. Like what appears to work in general relativity in the motion of like large bodies cannot apply yet to subatomic particles. So there's been an ongoing problem.
But that's not special relativity.
Not special relativity to quantum physics and general relativity. And there's a bunch of new theories starting to come out, that, like string theory, but then I forget what the name of one of the new theories that's coming out, where they're basically arriving at a thought that they're pulling time out of the equation in an effort to try to understand how the universe works. This is basically where the end of my understanding is going to stop. But what I thought was kind of interesting about this article is that I think we're in a very interesting time right now, and probably have been for longer than we think, but at least in terms of like layman understanding of this, is that Western scientific thought appears to be starting to meet with like ancient Indian Vedic thought. And so I pulled up like this famous clip that everyone knows of Oppenheimer after they use the atomic bombs. He does this quote, which I'll just play real quick.
The world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
So the interesting thing about that quote is people always quote this video and talk about this video. It says, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds." Most of the translations of that actually say, "Time I am become destroyer of all the worlds." It's from the Vishnu takes on the form of time, the great destroyer. And so then it sent me down this rabbit hole in relation to that first article I sent of like, what were the ancient... Oh, first of all, hold on. Just to interrupt deep thoughts.
Probably a fucking dit. Sure, Einstein was a genius, but he's probably a fucking ditz half the time. If I know anything about Pisces men.
So I just wanted to throw that into the middle, add a little levity to our serious conversation here.
Can we just play on? We won't ask him anymore. We'll just play his online. What's it called?
It's better. It's curated.
So
I'm a little confused because I only know enough about physics to not know that, to make it more confusing. But I thought they didn't even really care about time anyway. They don't really need it, and it's not in the math. It's more about that's our perception of the world having to do with the universe having a beginning and the course of entropy. But I thought kind of in the maths, they didn't actually really talk about time that much in physics.
Right. Well, that's what I was trying to understand, is that in certain avenues of thought, they have tried to incorporate and understand the idea of time. In others, they've not addressed it. In others, now they're basically trying to arrive at the understanding of what time is. Is it just purely like what you're saying, which is our perception of how reality rolls out? And
I thought that there was more like, this is someone out there can just correct all of this shit, but there is something in that the math works backwards. Mm-hmm. But entropy is the part that introduces confusion or doubt about that, because entropy and the kind of movement towards a disordered universe. I only know this about people who've tried to write time travel movies. Like that, you know, they always that's one of the things that makes them doubt the possibility of time travel is entropy. That's always how I've heard it described. But time is like, what is it? Well, it's not in our depth to even understand.
Listen, I'm not suggesting that we try to figure out time today. We don't have the time to do that. But it's just interesting now that at the kind of layman's level of discussing quantum physics, like obviously, like the great quantum theorists and the great physicists like Niels Bohr, Heidegger, and like Oppenheimer, all were into Vedic philosophy,
right?
And they basically, I forget the quote. I think it's Heidegger or not Schopenhauer. Who's got the cat?
Schrödinger.
Yeah. He says when I go to the Upanishads when I have questions. And it's just interesting that so many of them were influenced by that thought, and they were obviously 60, 70 years ahead of finding this connection. So it kind of sent me down this rabbit hole. We're not going to try and figure out time, but just to hear what a couple people in the past have thought about this, and then to see where modern physics is either catching up, adding new stuff to, and where we're arriving at that thought. So I came across this dude, Parmenides, who was a Greek philosopher prior to Socrates and Plato. And this, though, is
he gets graded onto pasta a lot. Is that what
is that in the same?
Yeah.
Thought Parmenides need parmes.
Yeah.
Need parmes. Anyway, carry on back to quantum physics.
So this is from Plato's book called Parmenides, which is a theoretical or an imagined discussion between Parmenides and someone else. And so he's talking about, I'll just read a bit of it and we can see where it takes us in discussion, and then read one more thing. He says, and whenever being in motion it comes to a rest, and whenever being at rest it changes to moving, it must itself presumably be in no time at all. How is that? It won't be able to undergo being previously at rest and later in motion, or being previously in motion and later at rest without changing. Obviously not. Yet there is no time in which something can simultaneously be neither in motion nor at rest. Yes, you're quite right. Yet surely it doesn't also change without changing. Hardly. So when does it change? For it does not change while it's at rest, or it's in motion, or while it's in time. Yes, you're quite right. So it's this absurd conversation, but they arrive at this thought that Parmenides, which obviously has been argued against, there's different theories on this, that there's something he calls this queer creature, the instant, lurks between motion and rest, being in no time at all, and to it and from it the moving changes to resting, and the resting changes to moving. So it's this idea of there being something outside of time, which, if we go back to what you were saying, is that our only perception, like time right now as we could understand it, appears to only be a perception thing. So there is then the question, well, what is not perception? What's outside of that? That's brought up, and it's just interesting. This dude's fucking 500 or 600 BC that he's writing about this quantum physics, and at the highest level of new physics thought is still trying to understand this. And then the not Bhagavad Gita, but the Upanishads talk about this here. And this is just from an article that someone's writing about, trying to find the kind of connection between the thinking in the Upanishads and quantum physics. So I'll just read 3 little things from this and we see if anything comes from it. He says, specifically with regard to quantum theory, I propose that the teachings of the Upanishads can be summarized into centering around 3 key points. Number 1, There exists a transcendental, infinite, non-local, dimensionless, unchanging reality that is obscured from the limited cognitive perception of the human senses. Number 2, this foundational reality is veiled by means of a cognitive illusion that limits consciousness into a localized, linear, and dimensionally finite perception of time. Number 3, advanced mental trainings were developed and practiced in order to liberate one's consciousness from the illusory cognitive limitations of the mind via a perceptual reframing of time into its fundamental, non-local, entangled state. So that's a summary from this guy of his take on the Upanishads, which in the little bits that I've read from it is a fairly accurate.
Yeah.
So Schrödinger also says here, the multiplicity is only apparent. This is the doctrine of the Upanishads, and not of the Upanishads only. The mystical experience of the union with God regularly leads to this view, unless strong prejudices stand in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, man. It's just crazy to think that, one, this is an unanswerable question, apparently, because none of the great minds have been able to explain. Well, I wouldn't say it. Maybe it's not unanswerable. Maybe that's the wrong word. It's unexplainable to someone else. Like, if you can understand it, perhaps you have to understand it via your own means. And then 2, that like for thousands and thousands of years, there's been this level of understanding of it. Mm-hmm. And it's, to me, it's just mind blowing. So do with that what you will.
It reminded me of when I was a kid. I used to throw a tennis ball. If you ever lay out on the floor on your back and throw a tennis ball up into the air and catch it, you have the a totally different perspective of it because it's going up and down. Like when you throw a tennis ball and you're standing, it never comes back to you. But when you're on your back and you're throwing it up, it's constantly coming back to you. And there's that moment, which the first thing you read, there's a moment where it stops going up and it comes back down, which always gave me a feeling that you can't describe, and what that was trying to describe, that kind of the paradox of this moment between rest and motion, which
someone's answer would be that it's never not in motion.
That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't. I am not saying that even facetiously. You can explain that to me with words, but I can't understand it. It's like also the moment between an inhale and an exhale. Mm-hmm. There's no to understand it in a different way. To understand it without just words or intellect is really difficult, because there's an inhale and then becomes an exhale, and you can hold your breath, but that becomes something different between those two things. But there's a moment between an inhale and an exhale, which is neither one, and that's a perception of time, or perception of non-time. I don't know. For me, I can't think about it in a logical or rational way.
Maybe the whole thing is neither one.
That
there's a constant background of something unchanging, and that's you need. Like, our minds seem to divide things into these contradictions, and we take for granted these contradictions as opposed to accepting them as a facet of consciousness.
That's what I mean, is that those little things give you maybe a taste of reality, which is not this dual movement or motion, but that.
Have you ever had an experience, drug-induced or otherwise, that gave you something that made you think in these terms?
I've only dabbled in the psychedelics and never went that far out. So it's more just like, going through the whole existential crisis as a kid, and then I kind of happened upon Buddhism and stuff. So that was the most I ever tried to like feel the oneness and stuff. Mm-hmm. Now I'm more just living as a human, I guess. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I can kind of get to that moment sometimes. But for me, it has to be like a lot of stillness, or I don't know. And then it just makes me think about like, I mean, does our brain really need to know what it's like to feel it's okay to be human and just do human things, right? Yeah. And if you really want to be one with the universe, well, you are one with the universe already, or, you'll die and you can be dust, and maybe,
I think you know what the irony
Come
of it
back
is
as
that
a cat that used
As
to
a
be Mozart.
cat, if you're famous first.
I find well, I don't know if irony is the right word, but your description of that process, I think, is a continuation of the striving for union of some kind, and you're talking about the transition from a clinging to an intellectual concept to actually some form of acceptance of yourself, which is linked to union. So I think ultimately you have no choice but to pursue that sensation of union or, greater understanding. I truly don't think you have a choice in the matter. I think it's an inevitable pursuit.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, Janson. Like that, there becomes a point where you feel like, what good is all this thinking about these things doing me? And if it is, let's say, if it is true, this idea that there's a oneness and a union, perhaps I should just try to do that thing and not necessarily think and talk about it. And that's definitely a valid point. I mean, look, we're on a podcast. That's all we can do about it right now. Maybe not. Maybe we could be more present. But yeah, there's definitely a tendency to just talk about things, and I think it's important because I think you can't have one without the other. You do have to have thought inform your action. It's not just action, because there has to be a structure, perhaps, and you're always trying to find and refine what that thought and structure is behind your action.
So you know what I find as a kind of ironic or a counterintuitive technique is, I think there's utility in temporarily believing in solipsism. Because even right now...
Like, could you speak English, motherfucker?
The idea that you're the only thing, it has a counterintuitive consequence, which is that you identify with yourself less, or at least for me. Because if I imagine that this is some sort of bizarre game, and I'm conversing with myself, it's actually the opposite of what I would consider like egocentricness.
Because there is no other
Right.
you or everything.
Yeah, it kind of diminishes my default perception of myself. It temporarily weakens my default perception of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think like if you go too far down that route, you could almost justify any behavior, or it could turn you into a little psychopath, I think, if you just start thinking nothing's real. But it's useful like in small doses for me,
Yeah.
I think Rihanna said it best. I want you to make me feel like I'm the only girl in the world.
Right.
Is that what you're getting at?
The solipsistic anthem.
All right. I think we figured it out pretty well.
Yeah, let's do music.
Let's do music.
Yeah.
All right. So this week I picked, let me pull it up. I forgot what I picked. Where is it? Where was? So if you're on TikTok, I feel like you cannot not see the Belgian artist Stromae right now. I don't know if you're scrolling, like he's blowing up in a major way. He did a Tiny Desk concert, and he's been huge in Europe for a long time. I think this is the moment that he's cracked America, basically. He's got a new album out, came out end of last year, and it's fucking cool shit, man.
He also seems cool as shit too, because he doesn't like do anything other than release albums. He's got our dream.
Oh yeah,
he released an album. He disappeared for years and came out.
Well, he sold 1 million albums in France alone of his first album. 1 million albums, you can do whatever you want. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm sure like every artist, he wants to crack America. Like, there's always, you want to do more, but it's really cool stuff. It's a lot of like, it sounds very current, what's going on in like pop or even reggaeton sort of vibes, but he's Rwandan, his family, I believe. I don't know if he was born there or if he was like from Rwandan immigrants into Belgium. But so it's got this African feel to it that to me is a little more interesting than the typical pop beats that are like happening right now. And then, I don't know, he's just got an interesting take because it's like very French sounding, all the chords, almost like you like, give me a French chord progression. That's what it sounds like. But he's found a new take on it. So the song I picked is called Santé. But the whole album so far that I've listened to is really, really cool stuff. Then for lyrics this week, I was saying earlier that I picked a cop out because I couldn't think of a lyric that I thought was cool this week. So I found this song that I've been listening to a lot by Hank Williams III. He's got a punk rock outfit called Hank 3. It's called Broke Jaw. And that's literally the only lyric I can hear in that song because it's so distorted and so like mumbled. And it's cool. Sometimes lyrics are overrated, is I guess my point on this thing, because I just hear broke jaw, broke jaw. But check out Hank 3. Like it's like they call it hellbilly music, or there was a some other term for like punk grouse maybe.
Okay, I've heard of psychobilly. Is that
Yeah. I really like it. He's got something came down from his granddaddy. He's got some kind of special thing in his voice. What do you got this week, Dill?
I got one song, one lyric. Did Bonnie Raitt, Angel from Montgomery. Just a lot of people have covered the song like over the last 50 years. I think it was written in the 70s. But it's a great song. Her version's probably the best because she's got an emotion in her vocal that just kind of really gets it across. Lyric: I'm an old woman named after my mother. My old man is another child who's grown old. If dreams were lightning and thunder were desire, this old house would have burned down a long time ago. Check it out. She's the coolest. She's one of the coolest.
Yeah.
All right, I got Kare Nanhasi by Hallelujah Chicken Run Band. It's an album that Jesse sent us. It's Zimbabwean. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. No, I invited it.
Yeah, she looks like a cop, but she, you know. This is that band that Jesse sent us. I don't know even when they're from. Really cool.
You said Zimbabwean, right?
Yeah. Zimbabwean kind of pop. It sounds like Maskandi and stuff, but very different. There's a specific thing happening in Zimbabwe that feels different. The kind of melancholy thing. And then the lyric is Al Green rhymes. Last night and the night before, 25 robbers at my door. I got up and let them in, but I missed them all with a rolling pin. All right, they took everything I own, like a king down from his throne. I can't let it get me down. It keeps saying I can't let it. Anyways, it invariably puts me in a good mood. His I can't let it get me down thing. He's got a ease about. I picture Al Green like floating through life. You know what I mean? Like he never touches the earth, and there's just like a bit of silk or linen, kind of just like he's really got an ease about him. You know.
This is a question I meant to ask earlier. I forgot. In listening to a little bit of your band, someone in there, if not more than one of you guys, is a jazzer.
Oh.
Right?
I certainly admire, I think we all admire the jazz.
The jazz.
Our guitar player, Mark, he's definitely taken a foray more into learning jazz licks and stuff, but I'm more of just like, I like 7th and 9th chords and stuff that.
Because there's a couple of songs, or even clips I was listening to from live where you went places that I didn't expect. You know, because sonically a lot of it is more in the indie rock sound of things, but you just went harmonically places where I was like, one of these motherfuckers has been learning about goddamn chords.
Yeah, we get pretty nerdy with the music theory kind of stuff, and that's fun.
Yeah, I mean that we're nerds. I don't know if it comes across in our music, but like we're all, to one degree or another, really interested in kind of pushing this. Well, I guess our rule is like, let's see how far we can push this without sounding jazzy, because there's nothing worse than sounding jazzy, unless it's jazz. You know what I mean? Like rock and roll jazz, or it just doesn't work for me at least.
It's hard to define.
No, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I will listen to the most, like, actual out there jazz. But then when a band, like, for me, I'd probably start a fight with this, but, like, Steely Dan to me is the definition of sounding too jazzy when they shouldn't. Fight me.
It's
soft
fair.
rockers.
You got a song and lyric that you brought?
Oh, yeah. A Steely Dan. The song was Pharmacist by Always. I've been listening to the new album Blue Rev a lot, and not a very unique pick. That's a lot of people's favorite album of the last year, I think. But I was always kind of a casual fan, didn't pay especially close attention, but this new one, they get kind of shoegazy, and the song I picked is kind of My Bloody Valentine-esque a little bit, and I'm a big fan of them, so just love the warpy kind of nature of it, but it still has pop hooks and stuff like that. Although I did realize the song I picked doesn't, there were other songs from the album that stuck in my head more, and I was like, I think I like that one the best though, but it's not sticking in my head as much. What is that? Do I not like it the best?
So you start to get analytical about like picking your music. We were saying that earlier, like when you have to pick a song or a lyric that means something to you, you start thinking about it. It kind of doesn't spoil it, but it like pulls you out of it.
I remember that on that, what was the Arcade Fire album? That was the big, huge one. The
Funeral?
Suburbs?
Suburbs, yeah. I remember thinking the Big Blue, that was my favorite track on that album, and it also similarly didn't stick, but it was more like just a kind of really good driving song, kind of. Or good for driving, good while you're driving. So,
Yeah. My lyric is kind of a weird one. It's from have you ever heard of Why? WHY ? It's a guy/band. And just kind of a depraved line. It's feels exciting, touching your handwriting, getting horny by reading it and repeating "poor me."
I like that. So wait, I've never heard of that. The band's called Why?
Yes.
I need to make
With
a
the
note of
question mark. Kind of hard to Google.
Yeah, the redemption of that line is repeating "poor me."
Right.
Yeah.
The whole song is
it's a structure of a. It's like I like when lyrics follow the structure of a joke, even if they're not a literal joke. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, Why? That's an awesome name for a band if they blow up.
Right.
If not, it's like one of our good friends is Kenny Carkeet. He used to play in AWOL Nation.
Okay.
And he started a band with Max Collins from Eve 6 called Fitness. And when you search Fitness Band, like they're almost unfindable. You cannot find them because you like fitness music and you just get a bunch of workout music.
Wow.
Fitness Band, you get a bunch of workout tools. If they blow up, awesome. Yeah. If not, like it's the most obscure name.
They don't care about reputation.
No, they do.
It's like naming your band Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Bluetooth music, you just get like how-tos. Why am I not connecting to my speaker?
Maybe they named it that so that no one would find their shitty music.
Right.
That's a dig at you, Kenny.
Yeah, we need to get that even better, and we can clip it and target him. All right, well, we'll wrap it up here. Thanks for coming in. It was good, really good to get to know you. Everyone should go follow you on all social platforms. On TikTok, you are Dad Zodiac. On Instagram, you are
Dad Boy in Texas.
Dad Boy in Texas. And then the bands are Futon Blonde,
yes.
right? Just at Futon Blonde.
Yeah.
And then your solo stuff that you do, what would that be under?
Oh, I go by Janson Sommers. But you could find that stuff via those social media websites.
Cool. Well, yeah, it was really good to meet you. I'm going to wrap up the stream here. Tune in next week, guys. We have, they just followed us, the farmer. I know it's like a silly word to call him, but what's his name?
Oh,
Tom. Ben. Tom.
Yeah, Ben Roberts, a friend of mine in Driftwood. Well, he and his wife live in Driftwood. Pretty interesting people. He's a sommelier. Is that how you say it? Sommelier. You have to. But more than that, he's one of these guys where the longer you talk to him, you can't imagine it's like he's 150 years old. He's lived so many lives and had so many jobs and experiences. So really interesting guy. They've got a regenerative farm in Driftwood.
Yeah, I had not ever checked out their Instagram account. When they followed us, I went to go look at it. Holy shit, dude! He's doing that. They're doing crazy shit, like terraforming fucking Earth.
I'm gonna tell him to bring as much maybe footage or
is he gonna bring some
pictures? Wine? Yeah, I'll have to talk to him about what we do with the podcast. But yeah, it should be pretty interesting.
I was just saying to someone, I hope, because I've been drinking wine for the past year. It's been my kind of drink, and I'm like, I hope I don't ever fucking learn anything about this because I'm happy
drinking cheap wine.
Yeah.
You ever catch yourself learning something like, nope?
Yes. Yeah, I literally I tried to stop because it happened with whiskey. I started developing opinions about whiskey, and it's a negative thing because it just makes your life unnecessarily more expensive.
Well, I was
Doesn't
talking
really improve it
with Daniel when we went smoking cigars with him. I was like, I don't want to learn about this. It's another enjoyable vice that costs you thousands of dollars over the course of your lifetime. All right, guys. So tune in next week. Follow all the socials, Discord, blah, blah, blah. Goodbye.